Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing the 2010 film Devil as suggested by these lovely subscribers here. So the movie is starting off real hot. Immediately, somebody jumps from a building and just smashes into a truck. As you can imagine, the impact would make a very loud noise, but the custodian working inside of the building cannot hear because he has the most high quality, heavy duty ass noise cancellation muffs I've ever seen. He doesn't hear anything. It's one thing to not be able to hear it, but like you didn't feel that, you didn't see that out of your peripheral. I imagine with that kind of impact, you would have felt something shake, something move a little bit. So we meet our main character, Detective Bowden, and he's having coffee with his AA sponsor. Bowden's sponsor is giving him advice and guidance, telling him that his ability to forgive is going to determine his quality of life. And not only that, but that it might be good for him to start believing in something greater than himself. And Bowden expresses that it's difficult for him to believe anything since his wife and son were killed. And we get more context on that later. So Detective Bowden, being a detective and all, goes into work doing detective shit. This leads him to the person who jumped in the beginning of the movie. But when he gets there, the scene is completely wrong. So the truck is next to a building, but jumping from that height would not have caused that great of an impact, and it certainly wouldn't have killed somebody. Detective Bowden notices that there's a stream of water flowing towards the truck, and he's like, oh shit, the person jumped from a different building, landed on the truck, and the truck rolled over here. And I really love in movies when detectives use context clues. He came to that conclusion very quickly. So Bowden and his partner Markowitz start walking down the street to find where the initial incident happened. So then we cut to a building, and there are 5 strangers that get onto one elevator, and shit pops off. Shit goes down. I've created this character board here so we can keep track of names and who's gonna get fucked up. Because spoiler alert, people are going to get fucked up. So first we have the guard, which is an unfortunate situation for him, given that he had no intentions on getting on the elevator to begin with. From the lobby of the building, he gets a phone call to take something up to the 39th floor. And it seems that any other day, the guard would have used the stairs, but one of the other security guards is like, dude, just take the elevator. It'll be faster. And I'm like, you're going to walk up to the 39th floor? That is an amazing practice to have, honestly. I live on the 3rd floor, and there are days where I'm like, maybe I could sleep in my car tonight. I don't know. So I couldn't imagine being like, just casually being like, yeah, I'm gonna walk it up to the 39th floor. Huh? We have a young woman. We have a more mature woman, and ain't nothing wrong with it. A salesman and a mechanic. Our 5 characters load the elevator. The elevator is moving. It suddenly halts. And now they're stuck. I know for a fucking fact that either my bowels and or bladder would activate in a situation like this with an urgency, with a passion. I feel like as the elevator would stop, my bowels and or bladder would be like, is she in a confined space with strangers? So now we're in the building security room where we meet Lustig and Ramirez. So Ramirez comes in and notices that the elevator is in inspection mode and that there are people stuck in the elevator. Lustig uses his walkie-talkie to contact Dwight, which Dwight seems to be a part of the maintenance team for the building, but he said that he's occupied because there's a broken window on the 35th floor. But he says that he'll leave to check out the elevator. So in the elevator, tensions are high. Honestly, these do not seem like the type of people that you could vibe out stuck in an elevator. You know, they're not like making cute little small talk like, oh, well, looks like we're stuck in a pickle. It seems that they do not fuck with each other at all. They just all seem very standoffish. So you have the security guard pressing a bunch of buttons, basically trying to get the elevator to jumpstart. And the old woman is ridiculing him. She's like, don't you keep up your equipment like it's his house. The guard explains to the woman that he's a temp, which is like, even if he wasn't a temp and he was like a full-time security guard there, he didn't build the elevator himself. You know what I mean? He had no parts in that. So Lustig gets on the intercom and lets everybody in the elevator know that maintenance will be assisting them soon. And we find out that communication in the elevator only works one way. The camera, for some reason, is not picking up audio inside the elevator. So security can only see the people in the elevator, and the people in the elevator can only hear whoever's speaking on the intercom in the security room. We also find out that nobody has any reception on their phone, so they're kind of just sitting ducks. So Dwight goes to the roof to access the elevator shaft, and while he's on the roof, and mind you, this is a tall ass fucking building, while he's on the roof, his hat flies off in the wind, and he runs after it all the way to the edge of the building. With my fear of heights, as soon as the hat left my body, it wouldn't belong to me anymore. It would belong to the universe. It would now be a part of the city. Once Dwight makes it to the elevator shaft, he sees that everything looks fine, but says that he's gonna cut the power to see if they can reset the elevator and get it moving. So the elevator gets dark for a moment, And just before the lights cut on, you hear the old woman screaming. And apparently in the dark, the security guard grabbed her. And everybody is looking at the security guard like he's fucking crazy, because why the fuck are you grabbing old women in the dark? That's weird. I don't like it. But the security guard explains that he has claustrophobia and that when he was a kid, his brother locked him in a trunk for 6 hours, which I'm like, damn, I sympathize, but also back the fuck up. Mechanic finagles with something in the elevator ceiling and is able to get airflow into the elevator, which is like a kind little gesture. He does this so the security guard can get air and relax and calm the fuck down and maybe not grab people in the fucking dark. Lustig tells Dwight everybody's still stuck in the elevator, and Dwight is saying that he's gonna go down to the basement and see if he can fuck around with some cables there. In the security room, Lustig tells Ramirez that somebody jumped from the 35th floor, and that is the reason that the window upstairs is broken. Are we seeing, are dots connecting here? Inside the elevator, tensions have remained high. Everybody's growing impatient. At some point, the young woman accuses the salesman of grabbing her booty, grabbing her ass. This will be important information later, believe it or not. The lights in the elevator are flickering, which is honestly concerning as fuck. I have no idea how high up you are, and you don't know if the flickering lights is gonna impact whether or not this bitch is gonna drop up. But I have heard that anytime an elevator gets stuck or it's stopped, there's like automatic latches where it's like physically, I don't want to say physically impossible for it to drop, but it would be very difficult for it to drop. So in the security room, Ramirez is watching them and sees a face appear in the static on the camera. The way I would have called in sick. They would have like, you're already here. I'd have like, I don't care, I'm calling in. I'm going home. Cut to Dwight. He's in the basement. Dwight nearly gets crushed by an elevator. If I was him, I would have also called in sick. I'm like, I've done everything I could in this situation. I'm just gonna go home. Cut to the elevator crew. The elevator goes completely dark. You hear shaking, you hear rumbling. The lights cut back on and the young woman is on the floor and her back is scratched up. Like she's gonna need, she might need some stitches. And it's one thing for the lights to get dark and people get scared and they're like, oh my God, hold on to me. And then it's another thing for the lights to cut out and people are catwomaning, scratching, giving aggressive biscuits to the bat. The group notices that the salesman has blood on him and he's not doing a very good job at defending himself. He's like, oh, well, she did that to herself. What? Physically, I suppose it's possible she could have done that to herself, but why the fuck would she do that to herself? Lustig and Ramirez, like I said, they can't hear what's going on in the elevator, but they see that the woman has been hurt, so they call the police. So by this point, Detective Bowden and Markowitz have come across a building and they see a custodian outside cleaning up some glass, and they find out this is where the person had jumped. They declare the area a crime scene, and of course that means they would have to call over forensics, and Detective Bowden is rizzing up Elsa in forensics. It seems like he has a little, you know, a little friendly girl, a little girlfriend, somebody that he rizzes up from time to time, which I love that for Detective Bowden because it seems like he's been through a lot, especially with losing his wife and his son. But also, if I was his wife, I'd be like, who the fuck is that? But as Detective Bowden is rizzing up Elsa, dispatch calls out and says that there's a potential 240, which per Google is assault. And Detective Bowden is shocked when he realizes it's the same building that he just declared a crime scene. So of course, being right outside the building, Detective Bowden and Detective Markowitz take the call. So inside the security room, Ramirez is showing Lustig the face that he's seen, and I'm like, here we fucking go. It's always like this in movies where you have one person who knows what they're talking about and knows what the fuck is going on, and nobody listens. Lustig is not listening at all and is very dismissive. And poor Ramirez, he's like holding his cross. He's very clearly freaked out. And I myself, I'm not too religious, not even out of cynicism. I just feel like I haven't been called to it. I'm a firm believer in whatever the individual believes is their reality, or whatever the individual believes is valid. That being said, if Ramirez was my coworker, if he was my work husband even, I would have heard him out completely. We would have been in there with our little security suits on, and I'd have been like, baby, I'm like, babe, what's troubling you? What's the matter? Who we gotta call? Is it paranormal? Do we need the Ghostbusters? Better question, do I need to go home? Should I go home? So Bowden and Markowitz make it to the security room. Bowden is taking control. Love that for him. He's definitely in his element. Bowden is made aware that Dwight is working on getting the elevator unstuck, but even so, he tells him that they need to call the elevator manufacturer and the fire department. Bowden is looking at the security camera in the elevator with our stuck passengers, and he's relieved. He's like, oh, like one of your guys is in there with them. And Lustig is like, oh, that's not one of our guys. He's a temp. His name is Ben. Bowden is like, okay, call the temp agency security. I want all the information you can get on this guy, and I want to find out who everybody else is in this elevator. And I'm like, damn, he's really thorough at his job. And poor Ramirez, poor Bay, he's over here telling Lustig, like, hey, we need to tell him about the face. Lustig is like, oh, don't listen to Ramirez. He's just a little religious. Detective Bowden does not listen to Ramirez and continues on with his detective hunch. Bowden is trying to get information on everybody in the elevator. First, he instructs them through the intercom to put their ID to the camera, but the font is too small, so he couldn't read anything. And then he tells Markowitz to reference the sign-in sheet and see who hadn't made it to their appointment yet that morning. So inside the elevator, the lights are still flickering. Suddenly sees, like in the flickering of the light, the young woman sees everybody's laid the fuck out. And by laid the fuck out, I mean dead as fuck. And then within an instant, everybody's back to normal. And I'm like, what do you even do in a situation like that? How do you even react to seeing something like that? I guess if it happens quick enough, you could just dismiss it and be like, maybe I'm tripping. I don't even know if that actually happened. So the lights cut out in the elevator. There's commotion. There's rumbling. You hear noises. You hear a glass breaking. The lights cut back on and the salesman is dead. So Ramirez calls everybody back into the security room and they're all looking at the camera in the elevator and they're shook because what the fuck is going on here? And Ramirez is like, hell no, there's some other shit going on here. Somebody jumped out of the building, a woman got hurt, and now a man is dead. And then Ramirez grabs a piece of toast and it has some jelly on it. He throws it in the air. The toast falls jelly down and he's like, oh, this confirms it. I'm like, oh my God, baby, no, don't do that. They're not gonna believe you. Ramirez is telling them that the devil takes human form, torments the damned on earth before taking them to hell. And he said this is called the devil's meeting. He says that one of them in the elevator is the devil. And immediately, I mean right away, they have dismissed Ramirez. And Lustig like starts apologizing for Ramirez. He's like, don't listen to him. I'm sorry. I just feel like me as Ramirez's work wife, there would have been none of that. I'd have like, yes, the little toast bit was a bit ambitious, but what we're not gonna do is not listen to him. So Bowden gets information on Ben, the security guard, and he has a whole rap sheet. He has like hella assault charges. He sees that Ben beat someone into a coma with a bat inside the elevator. Of course, everybody's looking at each other sideways because who the fuck did that shit? Because like, why are we stabbing and killing salesmen? Detective Bowden notices that there's an envelope sticking out of the salesman's pocket, and over the intercom, he asks if somebody could grab the envelope and hold it up to the camera. So the mechanic holds the envelope up to the camera, and we see that the salesman's name is Vince McCormick. And the address on the envelope is for the Better Business Bureau. Lustig tells Bowden that they have an office in their building. So in the elevator, the young woman is like, oh, I've never seen a dead body before. Ben is like, yeah, me neither. And then here goes the mechanic. He's like, yeah, it's pretty awful, isn't it? And so they're like, oh, let me guess, you've seen a dead body before. And we find out that the mechanic is a veteran. So Ben is like, oh, you're trained to kill people then, huh? The mechanic confirms. And I feel that there are two ways to look at what the mechanic has just said. First way is, why the fuck would you say some shit like that? You definitely just murdered this guy. I want no parts. And then there's the mechanic's perspective, where I would indeed probably say some crazy ass shit. If I'm in an elevator and I know I didn't murder a salesman and I'm convinced that somebody else in there has, I'm gonna make myself sound badass as fuck. I'm gonna be like, yeah, I'm trained to kill people. Stabbing, jabbing, grata-ta-tying, you name it. I'm crazy. So then whoever is in the elevator killing people and hurting everybody, scratching, doing aggressive biscuits to bitches' backs, they're not gonna fuck with me because they're gonna be like, ooh, maybe she's a little crazy, maybe I shouldn't fuck with her. So it's like, I get that logic as well. So Detective Bowden visits Elsa. Like I said, she's in forensics, so she's upstairs with the broken window. Elsa is asking Bowden to look at the letter that the jumper left. And she's trying to understand it, and she says that the letter ends with, I can hear the devil's footsteps draw near. And Bowden, which I'm grateful for, makes a face. Something has perked within him. And I'm glad that he received it, and I'm glad it triggered some sort of a response for him. So the fire department has arrived, and I love me a fireman. I remember one time at my parents' place, we had to call the fire department for some reason. And honestly, I can't even remember why we needed to call the fire department because I was immediately smitten. I mean, they were just fucking huge. I remember me and my sister side-eyeing each other. We're hitting this like, I was like, oh my God, you look like you can pick me up without straining. I rather like that very much. But anyways, the fire department is there and they're having trouble getting into the elevator. Like they try an elevator key, they try a crowbar, and nothing's working. Cut back to the elevator gang and the mechanic opens a latch in the elevator ceiling. He tells the group like, hey, I'm a mechanic. I'm gonna see if there's anything I can do to maybe get the elevator moving. And the young woman is like, he's trying to escape. So Ben pulls the mechanic back into the elevator. Okay, so hear me out. If I'm in an elevator, motherfuckers are getting killed, and I feel the suspected killer is leaving, and they left me alive, I'm not gonna try to drag them back in. I'm gonna let them fucking leave. Like, you're over here talking about he's trying to escape, and you want him inside the elevator with you? You want him inside the confined space with you? I'm like, if he's trying to escape, that's fucking great. But nonetheless, the mechanic is pissed off because he's like, bro, I was telling y'all what I was doing. Like, what's the problem? And he encourages them to frisk him, as he puts it, to search him, to show them that he doesn't have anything suspicious on him. So Detective Bowden is on the 35th floor with the Better Business Bureau bitches. He's trying to get information on Vince McCormick, aka the salesman. And we find out that Vince was not a good dude. Apparently, he scammed a lot of people out of a lot of money. It seems that somebody themselves in result of Vince's scamming. We find out that there were quite a few people that filed a lawsuit against Vince. So Bowden has the list of everybody who filed a lawsuit and the list of everybody in the check-in, and he wants Markowitz to cross-reference it to see who would have a motive to kill him. And maybe that person is on the elevator. And while Detective Bowden is in the security room, Ramirez uses that opportunity to show him the face in the static. Ramirez tells Bowden, like, everybody believes a little bit, even guys like you who pretend that they don't. So Bowden goes on to explain the disheartening story of how he lost his wife and son. He explains that 5 years ago, his wife and son were killed in a hit and run on Bethlehem Pike. And I said, damn, of all the names the Pike could have had, Bethlehem. And the driver left an apology note on the back of a car wash coupon. And so he further explains that he doesn't believe in the devil because people are bad enough on their own. While Bowden is having this conversation with Ramirez, he is reviewing the footage of the elevator. And that scene before where the young woman accused Vince of grabbing her ass is put into a different context when Bowden sees that the young woman pretended that Vince grabbed her ass. Like, you can see her reaction to it, but you don't see the salesman touch her at all. And this causes Bowden to be suspicious of her. So back in the elevator, the vibes are not great, as you can imagine. And the old woman notices that Vince's legs are touching her. So she like kind of kicks or pushes his legs over towards Ben. Ben, of course, doesn't want Vince's legs touching him. So he pushes back. They get into like this little dispute. The old woman pulls out a can of mace and the mechanic cautions the old woman. He's like, don't spray that in here. You could blind all of us. And I'm like, that's true as fuck. They're in this confined space and she's trying to spray some mace. Despite the mechanic's warning, the old woman goes to spray the mace, but it doesn't work. We would have immediately restrained her. I'm like, you cannot be trusted because, bitch, I just said, and I'm not into calling older women out their names, but bitch, you're gonna blind all of us? Like, be so for real. And I can understand if it was like the situation in the beginning where the lights cut out in the elevator and Ben grabbed her. That's a mace scenario. That's a, hold up, you're physically touching me. You've made me nervous. I can get that knee-jerk reaction. But girl, y'all are over here arguing about a dead man's legs touching your legs. And I'm like, y'all could have figured that shit out cordially. You didn't need to bring out a can of fucking mace and potentially blind everybody. So Ben knocks the mace can out of her hand and sees that it expired in 1987. And to be able to keep track of something from 1987 to 2010, that is a talent, honestly. I could never finish a tube of lip gloss, a tube of chapstick before it gets lost, but being able to keep track of a can of mace for over 23 years, good on you. That's like actually really impressive. So while all this is happening, Dwight is dangling in the elevator shaft, and as they're arguing, they hear a crash and a thud on top of the elevator. Dwight has fallen. So at first, they think that they're being saved. They're like, oh great, somebody's here, until they slowly see blood seeping into the elevator ceiling. So Detective Bowden goes to check it out, and he's looking down the elevator shaft. He sees that Dwight is down for the count, and over the walkie, he tells everybody, hey, it looks like he's been impaled. He's either injured or dead. And Dwight's walkie-talkie is connected to his walkie-talkie, and everybody in the elevator can hear, which I would be like, get me the fuck out of here. This is too much. Because that's too much back to back, because what is going on at this point? And Detective Bowden is like, okay, let's get the fire department to cut through the wall and get to the elevator that way. So back in the security office, we find out that the young woman's name is Sarah Caraway. And the last name on the list for people who signed in but didn't make it to their appointment is Jane Kowski. So they determine that that is the old woman. And they see the older woman on the security camera, and she stole another woman's wallet from her purse. So Bowden is like, great, everybody on this elevator is questionable as fuck, but they still need to figure out who the mechanic is. And Bowden is looking in the camera and it glitches and he sees that everybody is dead. And then it glitches right back and everybody is alive. Okay, you've seen that shit. I know you've seen that shit. And I know you probably have questions for Ramirez. Lock in. So back inside the elevator, the lights are flickering again. The lights cut off. It's dark. Ben lights a match. And we see, I don't even know what the fuck is going on behind him. We see something behind him, okay? The match is diffused. It's dark again. You hear rumbling. You hear all sorts of noises. The lights cut on. And the old woman, as we know, as Jane Kowski, is dead. So Bowden sees this and he's wanting to shut down the building. He's like, nobody comes in, nobody goes out, everybody stays right here. Have everybody go down into the lobby. We're gonna figure this shit out. And we got a proper whodunit on our hands. It is an Agatha Christie novel in an elevator. So they're all looking at the security camera in the elevator, and Lustig is like, okay, we know that the young woman, Sarah, isn't doing this. And what I like about Bowden, what I like about Detective Bowden, he's like, I'm not ruling anybody out. And I appreciate that, because he could have easily been like, one of these men is doing this. He could have profiled, and he didn't. The fire department is needing somebody to go to the basement for the shutoff valve, whatever the fuck that means. So Lustig volunteers to go do that. And now it is just Ramirez and Bowden in the security room. Ramirez is telling Bowden that he, the devil, never does this type of thing in secret, and that there's a reason that they're the audience. And I would have, like, if that's the case, I'm gonna go home. I would have done everything I could to get out of that situation. If I wasn't in the elevator, but I was still somehow involved with what was going on in the elevator, like if I was security, if I'm a detective, I'm like, this is too much. If I'm a detective, that is my job to handle that. If I'm security and all I'm supposed to be doing is checking cameras, I'm on my Five Nights at Freddy shit, and this is beyond my pay grade, I'm going home. So outside the building, there's a woman who's trying to get in, but she's sent away by the police. We'll get more information on her a little bit later. So the mechanic and Ben are trying to move the old woman's body, and the mechanic is trying to close the old woman's eyes, and Ben is like, oh, you know, that's not gonna work. They have to be dead for a few hours. I said, now, didn't you say you've never seen? Well, what is this? Why the fuck would you say some shit like that? And it's one of those situations, again, where if I was somebody else on the elevator, that's something that would freak me out. But also, from Ben's perspective, I feel like that's something that I would know and accidentally say at an inappropriate time. I watch a lot of crime documentaries. I read a lot of crime books. I read smut books as well, but that's not the point. The point is, I do know some fun facts that aren't fun, and am likely to bring up said unfun fun facts if the occasion arises. So while Bowden was reviewing the security footage of the lobby, they see that the mechanic came in with a satchel, but does not have the satchel with him in the elevator. So Bowden and Markowitz are downstairs, and they think like, okay, if you came in with something, you didn't want to take it upstairs, where would you go to take it? The restroom. They go in the restroom, they find the satchel, and it's full of tools. Tools that could have been used to hijack the elevator. So in the security room, Ramirez is in there by himself, and he's speaking into the intercom, and he's praying. And inside the elevator, Sarah introduces herself to Ben, and they exchange pleasantries, like she's being very friendly towards him. And the mechanic reaches his hand out and introduces himself as Tony. And the look they give him, oh my god. It is a look of distaste. It is a look of, who the fuck is talking to you? So Tony senses the vibe, he senses the hostility, and he calls Ben out and is like, where did your claustrophobia go? Like, you know, you were claustrophobic before and now you're fine. I think you're fronting. Tony outright accuses Ben of the murders. Ben and Tony get in a little tussle, a little fight. Detective Bowden runs in, he grabs the intercom and instructs everybody to find a wall and just to put their hands up and to face away from each other. Bowden is starting to catch on. We're seeing some progress here because he asks Ramirez, how does this end? He's like, hypothetically speaking, if what you're saying is true, how does it end? And Ramirez says that they all die. I said, fuck, well, it's not very useful, is it? I'm like, might as well pack up and go then. So Markowitz comes in and reveals that Sarah Caraway, the young woman, also has a criminal record. Apparently, she's been arrested multiple times for blackmailing rich married men. They find out that the arrest stopped once she married the heir to the Caraway family, which a Caraway I can only assume is a wealthy family, and she has married into said family. And she was there that day to meet with a lawyer by the name of Wayne Kazan. So Bowden goes out into the lobby, he finds Wayne, and Wayne is not very forthcoming at all with any information regarding why Sarah was there to see him. Once Bowden explains that somebody attacked her in the elevator and that he's just there trying to figure out who would have a motive to hurt her, Wayne very vaguely tells him to look into the person closest to her, referring to her husband. And he also tells Bowden that his specialty is forensic accounting. So Bowden is like, bet, we need to contact her husband. Cut to Lustig. As I mentioned, he's in the basement and he's trying to handle the shut-off valve, again, whatever the fuck that is. He sees that there's a little spurkies going on down there, and he steps on the water, gets electrocuted. Lustig stumbles into the lobby, all crispy and whatnot, and Bowden calls the medics over to help him. During this chaos, the woman that was trying to get in the building before is able to get inside. So inside the elevator, Tony has now become suspicious of Sarah, and he refers to her as a twist, which sounds endearing, but it is not, we come to find out. Like, ooh, girl, you a twist. That sounds like something you'd say to somebody, like if they're like funny. I don't know. So Tony goes on to explain that twist is a phrase they use in the Marines to describe somebody who caused drama. And Tony is saying that while he was in the Marines, there was a guy that stirred drama up, and he was basically causing problems where they weren't. And he said to handle that, we beat the shit out of him. And then there were no more problems after that. And so, of course, Sarah is like, that is a fucking threat if I've ever heard a fucking threat. And he's like, I'm just calling it what it is. So the detectives get a hold of Mr. Caraway, Sarah's husband. He will not speak with them without a lawyer, which is very smart. If there's ever a situation where law enforcement is involved, don't talk to anybody without a fucking lawyer. So Bowden found out from Wayne, Sarah's lawyer, that she was trying to locate Mr. Caraway's money. So she was gonna rob his ass and divorce his ass. Bowden suspects that Mr. Caraway found out about this and was trying to have Sarah set up to be killed. Bowden suddenly realizes that the security is Caraway security, so he believes that Ben is in there to have Sarah killed, and that the old woman and the salesman were all a part of a plan to deter the fact that he is there to kill Sarah on behalf of Mr. Caraway. So the lights start flickering in the elevator again, and Bowden is like, oh my god, Ben is going to kill Sarah, like we need to get in there right now. So the lights cut out. Bowden over the intercom tells them to use their cell phones to light the elevator up so they can all see what's going on. Their phones get snatched. Something knocks their phones out of their hand. The lights cut out, the lights cut on, and Ben is dead. And it's like, damn, every single time you're like, okay, it's this person, it's that person, they get killed. And you're like, oh, well, shit, well, who is it? Of course, Tony and Sarah are scared. Imagine you're in an elevator, everybody's getting killed, and you're one of two people left. Tony and Sarah grab a shard of glass to defend themselves from one another. Tony is like, oh shit, you're the last one left. You're the killer. I should kill you right now. And I get that logic because it's like, kill or be killed in this bitch. And Sarah makes an excellent point that if she kills him, they're going to put it all on him. They're just going to blame him for all the murders. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. But it's like, what do you do in a situation like that? So Bowden is freaked out. He's asking Ramirez, like, how do I save them? And Ramirez is saying that you can't really do anything. They have to see themselves for what they are. They have to take accountability for what brought them here. So Bowden jumps on the intercom and he's trying to reason with them. And he says that 6 months ago, he checked into a hotel and he nearly drank himself to death. And he was saying that he blamed the world for his actions, but really he needed to take accountability for how his life turned out. And he's telling them, like, y'all need to take responsibility and put the damn glass down. Tony and Sarah call a truce and they put down the glass, except Sarah has a shard of glass in her back pocket, which honestly, same. Because if I'm in there and I know I haven't done anything and there's only one person left in there, I'm going to want to have something to defend myself. Fire department is making headway. You know, they're cutting through cement. They're cutting through infrastructure, trying to get to this damn elevator. And the lights cut out. And when the lights cut back on, it seems that Sarah has been attacked. And she's slowly but surely dying. Tony is the last man standing and he looks shocked himself, which I'm like, why are you surprised? You did this shit. Everybody else, it's just you left. So one of the officers brings a woman into the security room that says that she knows somebody on the elevator. And it is the same woman who snuck into the building from before. She looks at the security camera and she's like, oh my God, Tony. The woman, Cheryl, explains that she's Tony's fiance and that he was there for an interview and she was supposed to meet him before his interview to get his bag of tools because he didn't want to take it in because obviously that wouldn't necessarily be professional. So that explains why he hid it in the bathroom. So Bowden is like, okay, Tony, what is his last name? She says Jane Kowski. now we're like, well, wait a minute. Who the fuck is the old woman then? That means she's the only one that didn't sign in. So we're back in the elevator. Tony is trying to help Sarah, and behind him is the old woman, and she has dark eyes. Eyes black. It's not because she's a narcissist. She's the devil. Tony seems to know who the woman is and why she's there, because apparently Tony has a fucked up past, and he's aware of what's going down now. Tony is talking to the old woman, and he's telling her to take him instead in place of Sarah. So the old woman gets pissed off. The elevator drops, and it comes to a sudden stop, causing Dwight's walkie-talkie to fall into the elevator. And the old woman is really going in on Tony. She's like, do you think you deserve forgiveness? Do you think that you're good because you're not good? And he's like, no, I know I'm not good. Basically, he's accepted his fate. Tony has noticed Dwight's walkie-talkie has fallen in. He grabs the walkie-talkie. From the intercom, Bowden tells Tony to turn the walkie-talkie to channel 8 so they're able to hear him. And Tony confesses that 5 years ago, he hit and killed a woman and her son on Bethlehem Pike. And apparently Tony was drunk driving. He said it was a hit and run and he had never been caught. Detective Bowden has now found out that Tony, the man who was like a stranger to him before, was the one who killed his family. And there's definitely a full circle moment here, because it's like, damn. Like, I know that was like the last thing that he was expecting to happen that day. Sarah dies in Tony's arms, and Miss Ma'am is just staring at Tony, and she's like, damn, like, I really wanted you. The lights cut out in the whole building. They cut back on. The old woman is gone. The firemen get inside the elevator. Bowden is right there when they get that elevator open. He sees that the old woman is gone, and he's like freaking out. He's like, we gotta find her. And I'm like, bro, you seen what happened on that camera. Like, you know what went down in that elevator. I don't think you're gonna find her. And even if you do find her, what the fuck are you gonna do? So after everything was said and done, Detective Bowden volunteers to take Tony in. And as they're driving, Bowden reveals to Tony that it was his family that he killed that night 5 years ago. And when I tell you, I would have felt fucking sick. Oh my God. Like, I literally couldn't imagine something like that. And the fact that he like had moved on and like found a fiance and stuff. And can you imagine you're engaged to somebody and you find out they're carrying a secret like that? Bowden tells Tony that he's been waiting for this moment for years. He was like, I've always thought about what I would say to you, what I would do. Ultimately, Bowden tells Tony that he forgives him. The end. I feel like that final conversation between Bowden and Tony circles back to the beginning of the movie when Bowden is having coffee with his AA sponsor, and his sponsor is telling him that the ability to forgive is going to determine his quality of life. And it's like this full circle moment, and I think that that's really dope. And like I said before, I believe this to be true, and I completely agree. I don't know if I would have been as forgiving as Bowden in that particular situation, but I also know if Bowden were to have carried that resentment even after meeting Tony, he would never know peace, really. And when it comes to forgiving and being on the end of needing to forgive, I always view it as not necessarily giving the person who wronged you grace, but giving yourself peace, because carrying around hate is like, it's not fun. It's not great. Carrying around resentment is not good for yourself. So it's like something that you kind of have to do in order to know peace yourself. What I do have mixed feelings over though is Tony having the opportunity to redeem himself over Sarah. And listen, blackmailing is awful and absolutely deserves consequence. There's no fucking doubt about that. But Tony out here drunk driving, and I feel like drunk driving is like one of the most selfish things that somebody can do. And not only that, but there is a major consequence of his decision to drive drunk. He didn't report it. He didn't say anything. He held on to that secret for 5 years. And what fucking sucks on top of that is, in his drunk state, Bowden's wife was still alive. Like, she was still alive. Like, there's probably time for her to get help. I really just don't fuck with that. And I don't think the devil did either, because I feel like there was a reason that he was saved for last, because nobody else got the big reveal. Everybody else just like died suddenly and then woke up in hell. He, however, was like, the devil said, bitch, I need to speak to you personally because you got me fucked up. I don't know if there's a difference with Tony's situation compared to everybody else's, because if you look at everybody else's crimes and everybody else's issues, they were intentionally hurting people. And I know that Tony didn't intentionally hit a mother and child, but bruh, like, it's still just pretty bad to me. And I also wonder if everybody in the elevator could have been saved if they listened to Ramirez much sooner. Like, could they have had time to repent if over the intercom they're like, look, okay, here's the situation. What have you done? Why are you here? Anything you want to apologize for, anything you want to make amends with? Could they have called a priest or something to speak over the intercom and buy them more time to seek repentance? I don't know. And oh my God, real quick, I forgot to add this in the video, but you'll also notice that excluding the old woman who, you know, is obviously the devil, everybody died in the order that they walked into the elevator. I just thought that was a cool little fact. Oh my God. And the reveal that Tony was correlated with Bowden in the worst possible way was something else. I remember seeing that for the first time and being like, oh shit. And like Ramirez was saying, there was a reason that they were the audience and they were the one witnessing this reckoning, this happening in the elevator. But yes, that's all that I have for you today. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. And I hope you don't get trapped in an elevator with the devil. Okay, bye.